Sky News political reporter Trudy McIntosh joins me now from our Canberra bureau. Trudy, we'll get to the specific issues of aged care in a moment. I'm keen to know the latest out of Victoria in terms of new infections. Update us if you can today, and any clusters of concern elsewhere in the country as well.
Peter, we've had a small dip today in cases. 384 was what was recorded in Victoria, but still an additional 6 deaths. In New South Wales, the cluster is 14 new cases today. All of those, though, have been linked to known outbreaks, which is of some relief to authorities. But I'll just bring to your attention, Peter, some breaking news that we have tonight concerning Scott Morrison's potential exposure to COVID-19. I can confirm that one of Scott Morrison's staff is now in self-isolation after attending that Apollo restaurant in Potts Point. It's one of the areas that New South Wales Health has subsequently said there has been a confirmed case there, and now anyone who had been at the restaurant in this declared period of time must self-isolate. This is the statement we have just received from the Prime Minister's office. It says, quote, "A staff member in the PMO is self-isolating after New South Wales Health issued a new alert last night. The acting chief medical officer advises that because the staff member had no COVID-19 symptoms, the Prime Minister is cleared to continue his plans." And those plans, as you saw there, he was in Queensland today, travelling back to Canberra. It's my understanding that this staff member has so far tested negative to COVID-19, but as a precaution, they have to be in this self-isolation for 14 days. If they do subsequently get symptoms, there would be a concern if they did have close contact with the Prime Minister that he himself would have to self-isolate.
Well, they're playing it absolutely by the book. Much of the Premier's press conference today, this is the Victorian Premier, centred on the escalating crisis, of course, in aged care and the number of evacuations of residents into hospitals. Today, Daniel Andrews had this to say.
My mother is in her mid-70s. She has some underlying health issues, but she lives at home. Some of the stories we've seen are unacceptable. I would not let my mum be in some of these places.
Now, is that a slight at the federal government, do you think, Trudy?
Well, it does appear that's what this shifting of tone was today from Daniel Andrews, that it's now raising the fact that Victoria is willing to help the Commonwealth Government with, aged care responsibilities that are under the federal remit. But we did hear Greg Hunt hit back at that today. He said, you've got to remember where the source of this outbreak came from. It was a breach of hotel quarantine. That's what started the community transmission. As we hear from aged care experts and medical officers, it's the community transmission that does inevitably lead to these cases in aged care facilities, Peter.
And we've seen that, Trudy, too, the Foreign Affairs Minister Maurice Payne, Defence Minister Linda Reynolds have arrived in the United States for the annual AUSMIN talks, AUSMIN 2020. What can you tell us?
Yeah, China's essentially going to be the backdrop for these talks. They're going to be happening overnight our time. There's expected to be a joint press conference. Expect Australia to be pushed behind the scenes when it comes to freedom of navigations patrols in the South China Sea. It's something that's been happening behind the scenes for years, this pressure that Australia should be going within this 12 nautical mile zones of reclaimed Chinese territory. The indications you get is Australia won't necessarily agree to that. Yes, they'll be a part of joint military exercises in this area, but not necessarily go as far to antagonise China as get within those 12 nautical miles.
Trudy, thank you very much. I might add both ministers will be subject to all the usual quarantining processes and protocols when they return to Australia shortly. It's only a couple of days at conference.